people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Nazarena,
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
todo por parte de Nazarena.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Romero versus Valenzuela. Let's talk about the fight. The fight worked out as I predicted, as I expected, with a few surprises. I thought Nazarena Romero would win a points decision. She went a step further and stopped.
Forced a stoppage.
10th round TKO stoppage of Paulette Valenzuela, who was taking far too much punishment at that point in the 10th and final round. In the early goings of the match, in the first round, I think it was established in the first round who the stronger puncher was, who the faster, sharper puncher was, and that was Nazarena.
She couldn't miss with that right hand.
Her variety of punches from the early goings of the fight to the middle and towards the end. Very good variety of punches, and she couldn't miss with the right hand.
Bouncing that thing off Paulette's head all night.
So in the early goings of the fight, Nazarena's looking fast, strong, and staying in character. It's around the middle that Paulette Valenzuela decides she's going to get at it. She's going to try to back up and back off Nazarena, and she did a decent job of doing that.
She starts coming forward, getting aggressive, but paying for it in the process. That she is putting Nazarena on her back foot.
She's not allowing Nazarena to overpower her. In essence, she's trying to overpower Nazarena, and she's getting picked off. She's getting countered. Nazarena's moving,
creating space, catching her coming in.
I think of Nazarena as a pressure fighter, a pressure-style fighter, a volume puncher. So to see her do a bit of boxing in this match, as Paulette's getting aggressive with her and backing her off,
It's a bit more malleable than I originally gave her credit for.
middle of the fight, Nazarena Romero is moving and countering, stopping Paulette Valenzuela in her tracks.
Piling on the damage.
Bouncing right hands off her head, right hands down the middle. Body shots too. The body shots can't be understated. Nazarena periodically put a couple of shots downstairs, trying to slow Paulette Valenzuela down.
She did.
I think it was in the 8th round and the 9th. Nazarena Romero badly hurt Paulette Valenzuela to the body. Looked like she was about to get stopped.
Body shots were getting her attention.
It's a wonder that she made it to the 10th and final round, as she was badly hurt and you could see it retreating. Saved by the bell both times. I believe it was in the 8th and in the 9th.
She survived, just barely.
It's in those rounds where she started to unravel that forward momentum, trying to put Nazarena on her back foot, backfired.
Because that's just getting you picked off. It's getting you countered.
You're a lot likelier to walk into something when you're the one barreling forward, and that's what Paulette was doing. That for all her best efforts, she just couldn't match Nazarena's speed and firepower. So coming forward on her, she's subject to her power, and thus in the 10th and final round, Paulette's corner threw the towel. She's getting hit way too much.
It all happened at once. Not only did the ref wave it off, but the towel got thrown.
And so, Nazarena is the newly crowned WBA Super Bantamweight Champion. I've long felt that Nazarena has everything it takes to see herself become a champion at this weight. The question now is, what's next?
Because there are 3 champions at this weight. There's Unified Champion, Ellie Scotney, and of course the long-reigning champion, the longest reigning champion at this weight, Yamileth Mercado.
Just thinking about the world title picture and what unification matches may lie in wait now that the landscape has effectively changed. Yami Mercado, the longest reigning champion at this weight, she's been WBC champion since November of 2019, roughly 5 years. And in the 5 years she's been champion, I've seen very little effort in terms of unifying titles with the other champions at this weight. The titles have changed hands several times already, but I don't see Yami in any hurry to unify.
Or I haven't.
I feel like if any effort is going to be put forward to trying to unify this division and crown an undisputed champion, it's going to be on Ellie Scotney's end. That she's at the center of that conversation, whether she pursues Yami or the newly crowned WBA champion, Nazarena Romero. That if there is going to be a unification match in the near future, it's going to involve Ellie and one of them.
It may not necessarily involve Yami.
The reason for it, I think it would cost a lot more money to get Jamie in the ring with Ellie than it would cost to get Nazarena in the ring with Ellie.
Nazarena is the cheaper alternative.
Because Jamie's been around a lot longer, she seems to have a decent base south of the border in Mexico, where she's fought many, many times. She got a decent-sized payday opposite the ring Amanda Serrano at featherweight.
Another decent-sized payday more recently with Ramla Ali.
That it may be harder to make a unification match involving Jamie and Ellie than Nazarena and Ellie.
If anybody's going to try to unify this division, it's going to be Ellie. It's just a question of which one of the two remaining champions does she get in the ring. And I think maybe it'll be Nazarena because she doesn't cost as much.
Maybe we'll see a unification match, another one, at this weight before the year is out. There's still a lot of time remaining. There's still all of October, all of November, all of December.
The predictions stuff.
I felt that Nazarena would become WBA champion, and last night she did. Now we've got to see what happens next. In men's super middleweight news, Canelo Alvarez was asked which opponent angered him the most, to which he replied, Billy Joe Saunders. That fucker pissed me off. That's why he got what he deserved. Some fighters talk to sell a fight, but I think he's a bad person, and I really enjoyed beating that guy. Insights into the mind of Canelo Alvarez, that when he doesn't like a guy.
I don't know how familiar Canelo was with Billy before the fight. I think he got to familiarize himself with the fighter leading into the fight once the fight was made, and that's where he realized he doesn't really like that guy.
I don't think he really likes David Benavidez, though obviously there is no fight made between them. This might explain his demeanor towards that fighter. I feel like when Canelo looks at David, he doesn't want to give him the satisfaction because of how rude he's been, how he's been trying to drag his name in the mud. David has. His father, Samson Lukowicz, the promoter/manager.
I think Canelo looks at all of them as a bunch of tryhards and a bunch of deadbeats.
That is without condoning or condemning, as some would say, well, if you don't like the guy, then go sock him in the mouth.
Like you socked Billy in the mouth.
This is without condoning or condemning that I genuinely think Canelo has a disdain for David Benavidez that leaves him so inclined to not give him the satisfaction that perhaps if he were more respectful.
Jaime Munguia was respectful.
And Jaime Munguia got the fight. David Benavidez didn't. So maybe in Canelo Alvarez's own mind, he tells himself, I'm going to make my money regardless of who I fight. And it's up to me who I fight, so I'm not going to give this deadbeat, these bums, the satisfaction. That is how I think he looks at it, but that's just me. You might have a different opinion.
He's in a unique position. Not every fighter is going to end up in the position that Canelo Alvarez is in, to where he's making vast sums of cash. He's the captain of his ship. He doesn't answer to anybody.
He's in control. He's in charge. And if he decides that he doesn't want to give a guy the satisfaction, then he's not going to.
Like it or lump it.
Myself, I don't feel that the door is closed on Canelo versus Benavidez. I don't, because things aren't working out between Canelo and Turkey El Sheikh and what suggestions Turkey might have. Things aren't working out between them.
That's one.
Canelo Alvarez is facing a scarcity, a shortage of big-name opponents that would make for a big-name fight.
That's two.
What's three is, even though David Benavidez's name has been attached to facing the winner of Better Be versus Bivol, I've said it a million times and I'll likely say it a million more, I don't think David is committed to fighting the winner of that fight. Now, least of all, him looking the way that he looked with Vajdik.
I don't think he's committed to that fight.
What's four? Canelo Alvarez is still working with the PBC. Even though it's Matchroom providing the opponent for his next fight, he's still working with Al Heyman, he's still working with the PBC, and maybe that'll be the next thing that they work on.
What's five?
Word around the campfire is that David Benavidez has rehired Memo Heredia, his strength and conditioning coach. Why would he do that? I mean, if you sacked him, if you got rid of him in your last camp, why have you rehired him for this one?
Why?
In a word, if Canelo Alvarez at some point next year decided he's going to give David the opportunity and he's going to fight him, as difficult as it might be for David to get back down to 168, I think he would do it. I think he would prefer to fight Canelo over the winner of Better Be versus Bivol. I absolutely do.
If he has to choose.
He would choose the older, smaller fighter. Absolutely he would.
So I don't think the door is closed.
When I see that Canelo Alvarez's fight is still on Amazon Prime, that he's still working with Al Heyman, even though it's Matchroom providing the opponent, I ask myself, then why didn't he just go back to Matchroom? Why didn't he just go back to DAZN?
You're still working with Al.
What's the point in still working with Al? He's not even providing you with the opponents. Your last two fights, Golden Boy provided you with one, and Matchroom is providing you with another.
So what do you need from Al Heyman?
What are you getting from Al Heyman? I'm not completely sure, but we know he's still over there as his fight is being billed as a PBC on Prime pay-per-view. So he's still in the picture.
They are.
Because they are, I feel like the door is still open for a David Benavidez fight at 168. Even if David has to kill himself to get back down there, he's rehired Memo, so I think he would do it if the opportunity were afforded to him.
The WBN recently published an article detailing Al Heyman's return from a lengthy hiatus. That late last year, he went missing in action, he had some family issues to tend to, but now he's back, and he's back in the mix.
So now that he's back in the mix, do you think he's going to sacrifice one of his unbeaten fighters, one of the few familiar fighters he has, to one of Turkey El Sheikh's shows to fight the winner of Better Be versus Bivol in a fight people don't favor David to win?
He's gonna sacrifice David, loan him out.
While Al Heyman was gone, we did see some PBC fighters on Riyadh season shows, but I don't know how much of that we're going to see moving forward now that Al is back. Least of all with David Benavidez.
It's not wide-eyed optimism.
There are a lot of outlying factors that lead me to believe the door is still open for Canelo versus Benavidez. Even if David has to kill himself to get down there, he would if he's given the opportunity. And soon, I think he might be. In men's heavyweight news, Frank Warren reveals world-class heavyweight Moses Itauma wants to fight next and insists unbelievable prodigy could beat Mike Tyson's record.
Mike Tyson is registered as the history of boxing's youngest heavyweight champion at 20 years old. Moses is 19.
Moses Itauma wants to fight Joseph Parker next. His promoter Frank Warren has told Talk Sport. The 19-year-old heavyweight prospect is already becoming somewhat of a sensation.
Do you think he'll do it?
What, beat Mike's record? I don't think so, because that would be saying that he's got to fight the winner of Joshua versus Dubois or the winner of Fury versus Usyk very soon, and I don't think he's ready for that, not at 19. At his young age, he's built up a record of 10-0 with 8 KOs. In his last fight, he stopped the famously durable Marius Vach in just 2 rounds, faster than anyone had done it before. Warren told Talk Sport Fight Night, "We were talking the last couple of days about his next fight. We'll be announcing that in the next week or so." He's still a teenager. He's 19 years of age, but it's the power he's got, the strength, and the composure he has. He's got a fabulous jab, and that's what I was really impressed with in his last fight. You get lots of guys, especially big punchers, when they're enthusiastic and young, they throw their shots and sort of fall in and fall on the opponent rather than get their distance. But he works off his jab and picks his shots really well.
I agree with all of that.
Even if I don't think he's going to break Mike Tyson's record as the youngest heavyweight champion to ever do it, I still think he can do very well for himself because he is that impressive. He really is that talented. And he did that really, really, really well against a real seasoned and tough guy who we expected him to get some rounds off. He just took him apart. Addressing what's next for Itauma, Warren said his next fight, the one he's told me he wants, is Joseph Parker. But is he ready for Joseph Parker?
In the last week or so, I've heard talks about Itauma versus Parker, Itauma versus Joyce.
What it communicates is it's clear that Moses and his team are ready for something bigger, something better, and I'm not against that, but that might be a step too far. From Marius Vach to Joseph Parker, just like that, with only 10 professional bouts?
You heard it right. That's what he said.
I do not begrudge Moses Itauma his ambition. It's admirable to see one so young, so ambitious, so ready for a real challenge, but I don't actually know that at 10-0, 19 years old, he's ready for that. That's what he was talking about, and he said, I really, really fancy that fight. I think it's a big reality within the next 12 months. If he keeps doing what he's doing, I don't want to rush him because obviously he's very young, and still, as far as maturing as a man, that's still to come.
Frank is right. At 19 years old, as strong as Moses is, this isn't as strong as he's gonna be later. He's gonna be stronger. He hasn't even come into his man's strength yet.
It's frightening when you think about how strong he'll be when he does that. He's in a hurry, and it's my job and his manager's job to temper that and pick the right fights at the right time. But I'm enthused with his enthusiasm, and I am a big believer. We've been sponsoring him since he was 15 or 16. We've been big believers in him all the way through. He's just an unbelievable boxing prodigy. There's no doubt about that. As it stands, the youngest heavyweight world champion in boxing history was Mike Tyson, who claimed the WBC title at age 20. Itauma turned 19 on December of last year. This means that he must become heavyweight world champion on or before May 26th of the coming year to surpass Tyson. That's his dream. That's what he wants to do, Warren said. It's a great ambition to have, but it's not about that. Boxing's a marathon. It's not a 100-meter dash, which speaks to what I always tell you guys, that boxing is a marathon, not a sprint.
How many times have you guys heard me say that?
My penchant for repeating myself. The way I look at it is, he's not going to break Mike Tyson's record, because that would rely on him facing either the winner of Joshua versus Dubois or the winner of Fury versus Usyk. He does not yet have enough rounds, anywhere near enough experience to face the winners of those fights. So while that is his dream, he won't see it realized.
And he would have to do this all before May of next year? It ain't happening.
That in tandem with Frank knowing the ball from the bounce. Frank isn't stupid. Why would you rush this kid when you don't have to?
You take your time. You get him the right fights. Allow him to develop. Look at everything he's showing you now.
How much more he could show you later. I don't think Joseph Parker is the right fight for Moses at this time. Joe Joyce is a little better, but even that seems soon. Joe's coming off a loss to Derek Chisora.
Even that seems a little soon.
So when I first saw Frank talking about Moses and how good he is and what he wants to do, I didn't want to take it from Frank. I didn't want to take it from him because, well, he's a promoter. He's got a job to do. Promote. So he's going to promote his fighter. I wanted to see this kid in action a couple of times to make an informed opinion.
Promoter's gonna promote. That's what they do.
Like Bob Arum when he started talking about Lomachenko, and now that he's talking about Inoue.
Vasyl Lomachenko is the greatest fighter I've ever seen since Muhammad Ali.
And now?
Naoya Inoue is the greatest fighter I've ever seen since Muhammad Ali.
Promoter's gonna promote. I don't even hold that against him, but I didn't want to take it from Frank. I wanted to see Moses Itauma for myself, and he really is that good. He's not a big heavyweight. He only stands in at about 6'2", 6'3", not physically imposing.
Not in terms of size.
In terms of physical dimensions, he's right around there with Alexander Usyk, about 6'3". He's got movement and speed and quickness and range of motion like Usyk, with power like AJ.
Strong.
Tack on that he's a southpaw, a fleet of foot southpaw with that kind of power. Incredible. And only 19 years old? No, you don't want to rush him.
Frank!
I don't think they should get him Joseph Parker. I don't think they should get him Joe Joyce. Maybe you get him Carlos Takam.
Johnny Rice.
10-0. At 10-0, Moses Itauma is not in a place to where you're supposed to be critical of who he's fighting at 19 years old.
No.
I'm not proposing that they spoon-feed him no-hopers and journeymen until he's 30, I'm saying that here and now, it's too soon for a Joseph Parker, and it may be too soon for Joe Joyce.
You have to find that happy medium between allowing the fighter to develop,
But not throwing him to the wolves, not putting him in a situation where he's in over his head.
the right opponents.
So you're not going to learn anything constantly being matched with guys that are there to lay down, that the first hard shot that lands, they hit the deck. You don't learn anything fighting guys like that, but you don't want to put him in there with a guy that's so good, too good, that Moses might be in over his head, because he's only 10-0.
19 years old.
You get him a guy like Chris Lovejoy, Johnny Rice, or maybe Manuel Chaw.
Manuel's WBA regular champion.
But you don't get him Manuel for the title he has, you get him Manuel for the experience, because that's what Moses needs. Experience.